Okay, so we set up some conflict. Now, how about making the peace? Okay, wouldn't that be a good thing? So, how can we create peace? Well, there are different ways now that we've got these social dilemmas created to solve them. Number one, regulation. Okay, so if everybody is allowed to act in their own social best interests, then almost inevitably the tragedy of the commons or some other collapse is going to occur. Okay, so if nobody was, there was no speed limit, everybody would drive as fast as they wanted, regardless of the safety of others. So we put a speed limit out. Okay, we regulate, we limit. Okay, and this is really a hugely important role of government that I am not a communist, but I'm going to put it out there. Capitalism, if left free to run on its own will inevitably create a shithole. Okay? So each factory looks at their production and they're like, okay, I have all this wastewater, I have all this garbage. I know. I'm just going to dump in the river, right? Saves me some money, right? It ain't me. Well, I mean, I suffer from the dirty water, but I mean, come on, what is my garbage to this water, right? And so what happens is that, they're going to take the benefit for themselves and the collective is going to suffer. So with regulations, we say, yeah, no, I know that it's more expensive to take care of that pollution, but you're going to do it. Okay, and so this is a real problem. Without regulations, and I'm sorry, we have entered the realm of free regulations. All regulations do in fact cost business money. Fact. All regulations are really, you say regulations, there are some people that say the word regulations like a dirty word. Regulation to me is a protection. Okay? The government needs to protect, all right, this is my naive view. It is my job to protect myself and protect my family to the degree I can. But when my ability to protect myself and my family is beyond me, like a giant corporation dumping pollution into a river, the government's job is to protect me in those situations when I cannot do it myself. All right? I will take care of making sure my family puts on their seatbelt in my car. That's my business, my job. But you know what? I have no control whether or not somebody else is texting on their phone in the other lane. Okay? That's where the government has to step in and regulate texting while driving. So that's my thoughts. Regulations are not a dirty word. They do in fact raise the cost of doing business. I will not deny that. However, they do so as a protection from an inevitable social dilemma. Okay, whatever. You got me on a... All right, just you're lucky I didn't go in on the oil industry and fracking, okay? Because then I would have really gone into a rant. Well, another interesting way to solve a social dilemma is to have smalls. In small places, there's less need for any kind, because what happens is that in small contexts, often social regulations are automatically in place. And so people's behaviors or people's selfish impulses, shall we say, they're the ids in selfish tendencies are held in check by social disapproval. Okay, so if you're in a small situation, you can't be anonymous. If you perform some transgression in a small social situation, everybody knows you did it. Okay, and you will get social disapproval, which is often enough to keep behavior on track and keep it from devolving into selfishness. All right, communication, and we'll kind of come back to this one. But communication absolutely helps to reduce mistrust. And so that's what diplomacy is all about, is communication. We talk to each other, we know each other, we understand each other. I remember back in the 1980s when it was the height of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, and Sting, the guy that was the lead singer for the Police, but Sting was a solo artist, and he had a song that was popular for a while. It was, whatever. It was called The Russians Love Their Children Too. And the idea is that the Russians were viewed as some kind of just evil, faceless empire, almost like a Star Wars. Put a mask over them so that they're, put on their the stormtrooper hoods and stuff, so that they're not human anymore and they all look the same and everything else. It's like, no, they're human. They love their children just like you love your children. And that's what communication is all about, is to understand that they have motives the same as you, that they're human in the same way that you do. But another thing that you can do, and this is related to regulations, but you can change the payoffs, all right? So say, for example, who wants to carpool? I mean, who wants to deal with somebody's smelly breakfast? And who wants to deal with waiting for Charlie for 5 minutes every morning? But you know what you can do is you can change the payoffs, like with the carpool lanes, the HOV, high occupancy vehicle lanes, where now all of a sudden I can get to work faster if I have more than two people in the car. So I've got an inconvenience from car. And so all of a sudden, we can create a situation where individuals will choose that thing which is in the collective best interest because it is also in their own selfish best interest. See? Cool. Cool idea. Okay. So the 4 C's of peacemaking that we're going to kind of talk a little bit is contact, cooperation, communication, and conciliation. All right? We'll lay out some of those. So contact is not enough in and of itself. Because look at this. Here we had in South Africa, following desegregation in the 80s, I don't remember exactly what year, but I want to say about 88 or something. You see what we have here is a desegregated beach. And it's hard for me to see on my computer screen here, but there's little dots there, colored dots. It was, listen to this. Blacks represented by red dots, like that's not confusing. Whites represented by blue dots. All right. Indians represented by yellow dots. But you see what they did was they clustered together. Even though it was a free and open beach, they self-segregated anyway. So there was no contact, even though we reduced the whole contact problem. So prejudice remained despite the fact. So in order to have, you have to have equal status contact. It must be contact where there is a possibility of a relationship, okay? Possibility of friendship. If there's not a possibility of friendship between the groups that are coming to a contact, it doesn't matter that you're coming to contact. So even though the 4 C's of peacemaking involve contact, it's not true just contacting. Another one that's pretty powerful, I like this. This is you see in the top right corner, in an actual snowstorm, not a Texas snowstorm. Often you get into the situation where you have problems that you cannot solve on your own. Like your car is stuck in the snow, okay? If your car is stuck in the snow, there ain't much you can do, okay? There are some tricks you can use. You can carry salt in your trunk and throw salt under the back tires or something. But generally speaking, if you get caught into a snowbank or something, you need the help of another person to get your car out. And so all of a sudden, what happens is you can build trust with each other simply because you've been put into a situation where none of us can succeed unless we cooperate with each other. So a common external threat builds cohesiveness. And that's really interesting. I don't know if any of y'all remember, but following September 11th terror attacks, you just could not imagine how many U.S. flags were out there. I mean, it was every car had a flag on it. It was just nuts. It was crazy. So all of a sudden, this common external threat is something they can build. So what we can talk about or give an official word to is a superordinate goal. It's a goal that we share with each other, but we cannot achieve that goal unless we cooperate with each other. And so we can go up to the Robbers Cave experiment, the Muzaffar Sharif's Robbers Cave experiment with the Eagles and the Rattlers, and see he used competition to create conflict. But then after he created this conflict, you take a look at the left side of this graph. After victory or defeat, right? But anyway, we can see with both of these lines, one is the team that wins, one's the one that loses. And then on the y-axis, rating of outgroup, percent totally unfavorable. So it's like 80% of the other guys are just stupid poopy heads, right? And so clearly, so what he then did was he created superordinate goals. In one situation, the camp's water supply was out. And so the only way to solve it was to create some kind of a bucket brigade, something like that. Or the camp bus broke down, and the only way that they could solve this problem was to work together to push the bus. And following this cooperative these superordinate goals and the cooperation which entailed as a result of it, you can see that the negative attitudes dropped quite precipitously from beginning to end. But anything you can do to promote a common in-group identity is powerful, including just simple uniforms, because the act of wearing uniforms turns them into us. And if you want to have, you want to reduce conflict, you just create a group of us, and you've eliminated it. Well, one of the keys is communication. As I already said, communication is all about trust. If you can't talk to each other, you don't trust each other. Because again, I hate to say it, but it's just like people that you don't know are almost inhuman or something. You don't know anything about them. Once you can communicate, they become human, and you recognize that the Russians love their children too, right? So in laboratory dilemma games, like the prisoner's dilemma game I described earlier, and even the bidding for a dollar game, remember what I said was that the key was no talking to each other. If you're allowed to communicate, you know what? Cooperation might, in fact, emerge from this. Bargaining, seeking an agreement through direct negotiation, mediation. I think what's actually pretty important in this notion of bargaining and mediation, and in fact even in arbitration, is that often what happens with bargaining and mediation is that both sides walk out and go, this is really not what I wanted. Okay? And if both sides walk out and say, this is really not what I wanted, but I am able to live with it, now that's perfect. You have mediated the problem exactly as it should have been. However, in arbitration, and by the way, just as an interesting, maybe, mediation isn't actually a route that a lot of psychology graduates go into. It's a formal educational degree, a degree in mediation. It's kind of it's a mix between communication, psychology, a little bit of counseling, a little bit of business, all kind of shoved together, and people can become professional mediators. You can be the neutral third party that goes into. So it's an interesting career path, and some of my former students have in fact gone down that path. But anyway, arbitration is a little bit different from mediation. It's not an attempt to, make both sides happy so much as to get at the truth, right? So this is what the law is all about, right? But anyway, resolving a conflict by a neutral third party who looks at both sides and imposes, this will be the settlement, all right? Sounds like the People's Court with Judge Joe Wapner, although I think he's been dead a long time. So anyway, what do you know? But anyway, integrative agreements, win-win agreements that reconcile both parties' interests to their mutual benefit. So we're going to look at a very good integrative agreement here in a second. But before I do, grit is an interesting technique. It's a strategy to de-escalate international tensions, but it can also de-escalate personal tensions as well. What happens is that you say, I recognize that we do in fact have something in common. This problem with global warming. Okay? That is something that we all share as a problem. So what I'm going to do is I will reduce my emissions by 3%. How about you? All right? And so you start small, right? You say, I will give you something, not very large, but now it's your turn to reciprocate. Okay? You reciprocate back. You reciprocate 3% to me, I go, hey, what the hell? Let's try 3% more. Let's see if you will reciprocate back. Huh? Instead, we have presidents that pull us out of the Paris Climate Accord with no rhyme or reason. No, I know the rhyme or reason. It's bad for business, okay? Okay, so let's look at that, as I said, integrative agreement. Okay? And so, a short tale of a lemon. And here I got a little note in the corner that says it's best to be shown in the slideshow mode, and I'm not running it in a slideshow mode. There's some pretty cool animations if you run it in slideshow mode. Alright, so once there were two women who both wanted a lemon. However, they went to the shop. There was only one left. Uh-oh. Without discussion, they just said, okay, fine. You take half, I'll take half. Okay? Alright. That sounds like, what would we call it? sounds like no, no, no. Sounds like mediation almost, right? Something of this nature. But guess what? We can do better. We can get a you little poop integrative agreement. So let's see what we can do here. They both took half, cut it in half. And so there's my next one. One woman took her half home, squeezed it. She wanted to make some lemonade, and she couldn't make the lemonade she wanted to make. It just didn't work. The second woman, she was trying to make a lemon cake, and so she kind of just tried to rub the skin off and she just didn't have enough peel to make the cake she wanted, right? And so both women failed to get what they wanted. All right, they come to agreement. I'll take half, you take half. Meanwhile, what happens is the lemon peel from this woman went in the trash, and the juice from this woman flew all over the kitchen. Oh, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. Okay? Because people were thinking zero-sum game. Okay? So now, had they just taken the time to talk and negotiate, they could have had the juice of the entire lemon, the rind of the entire lemon. Both ladies would have had exactly what they wanted. Talking often can lead to solutions which benefit everyone. Okay? So communication is a clear requirement for peacemaking. All right, cool. So we're done with all of the, for a lack of a better word, basic chapters of social psych. And so what we have coming up for the rest of the our presentations involves applications of psychology. So we're kind of sort of going into a new realm in the next presentation.